My last Gannibal video did really well, and it made me want to watch the live action series. However, I realized that the show covered volumes that aren't even in English yet, so I said what the heck, and I quickly translated the next 3 volumes, and I want to share them off with you today. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend watching the first video to this, but to recap, it's about Daigo and his family moving into a new village where the residents are known to be cannibals. The previous police officer was known to be murdered by the head family of the village, the Gotos. So now it's up to Daigo, the new village officer, to uncover what really happened. So today, let's continue this cannibalistic story and just see how much more twisted this series can get.
But if you guys want to see more anime content like this one, then why not go down and hit that subscribe button.
If you guys want me to cover the rest of the series, then let's reach 2,000 likes on this video and I'll do a part 3 real soon. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Daigo is in the shower, mulling over Goto's disturbing claim that the villagers caused the Kanos' insanity. Although skeptical, he decides to investigate. Meanwhile, 2 hooded figures give an old man a ribcage and ominously predict that Daigo and his family will face a similar fate to the Kanos. Daigo calls Sumire to ask about the villagers. She denies them being involved in her father's death, but mentions her mother has felt like someone was watching her. Daigo is setting up a fence around his house when Sabu-san shows up, criticizing the fence for giving off a bad impression in their trust-based community. Daigo mutters his annoyance, prompting Yuki to say that they'll take it down. Yuki also comments how Sabu always seems to be around during trouble, suggesting that he might be watching them. The villagers start acting strangely towards Daigo, amplifying tensions. They insist he must respect their elders and avoid trouble, especially given his outsider status and his obvious past. Daigo tries to visit Sabu but ends up apologizing after a heated argument with Yuki. Sabu accepts the apology and things seem to settle down until Daigo receives a call from the last number Kano dialed before he died. The caller, who claims to be the owner of Kano's satellite phone, says they need to meet in person. Daigo notices a neighbor watching and moves to a private spot for the call. The man reveals that Kano was searching for evidence of cannibalism, but won't explain more until they meet. He directs Daigo to a location deep in the woods by a river. The man, who is across the river for safety, reveals that Kano was eaten by villagers and that they are indeed cannibals. And the proof is his face. He recounts witnessing a festival where he was tied up and eaten by a hooded figure as a kid. After waking up in his mother's arms, he learned he had no family register and went into hiding. When he was 18, he met Kano to seek answers about what happened to him. With another festival approaching, Daigo needs to find an excuse to investigate further and save the next victim. The man hints at multiple collaborators, suggesting that finding Kano's phone might help identify them. At the village's festival preparations, Sabu questions Daigo's whereabouts, and when he arrives late, they ask who he was talking to on the phone. The tension is diffused by Munechika, the future chief priest, who introduces himself and suggests that he and Daigo talk later. Outside, he suggests that Daigo and his family should leave the village. Munechika explains the festival's grim purpose, offering children to reduce the number of mouths to feed. He warns Daigo to be careful or risk ending up like Kano, and offers his phone number. Daigo then notices that he has a satellite phone and wonders if he might be a collaborator. Before Daigo can mention anything, Sabu interrupts. Daigo then receives a call about an accident, but when he arrives, it's a ruse. The caller, Utada, identifies himself as a collaborator with Kano and runs a site called Chronicle. Utada wants to talk in private, so they meet up at a love hotel. Utada provides details about the unknown man's article about the village's cannibalism practices, and suggests tracing Kano's phone might reveal the whereabouts of the missing children, asking him why there's always one stillborn a year. At the festival prep, Sabu's daughter, Kanako, gets a little too close to Mashiro, with Yuki going to confront her. Sabu reveals Kanako had a stillborn baby, but Kanako insists that her baby is alive. As Kanako makes a scene, Yuki notices bruises on her back, possible abuse from Sabu. This revelation cuts to a child locked in a cage next to the old man. As Daigo returns to the prep party, Yuki tells him about the altercation with Sabu and his daughter. Daigo visits Sabu the next morning, trying to talk to his daughter. Sabu says, why throw away all the trust that they built up on some nonsense. But Daigo claps back, saying it doesn't matter what he says, it's a formal investigation against him. Kanako comes home and Daigo tries to learn about her bruises, but Kanako asks Daigo to find her child, who was taken by the head of the Goto family, Jin Goto, aka the grandma that died in the first chapter. Sabu tries to dismiss Kanako, but Daigo insists on investigating. Daigo meets up with Munechika and informs Daigo that the Gotos control all of the village land, and the fear of the Goto family is passed down through generations. Multiple women have reported Jin Goto taking their children at birth. Later that night, Kanako meets with Daigo and discusses her baby's birth. Jin Goto, the village midwife, had said her baby wasn't breathing, and when she took the baby outside, Kanako saw the baby's hand move, but was ignored by her father. Yuki calls Daigo to tell him that Sabu is at their house searching for Kanako. They rush home, where villagers confront Daigo. He was just trying to get the rest of the story from Kanako, but the villagers want to know where he's been sneaking off to. Daigo says that he was researching the Goto family and then takes down one of the villagers. Despite Daigo's protest, the villagers report his actions to the Gotos. The next day, Daigo's wife reminds him of a special day, but he doesn't really remember. Kisuke then invites Daigo for a hunt, where they discuss Daigo's research on the Goto family. Kisuke expresses respect for Daigo's dedication to his family and implies that he would do the same for his own. They end the day with a successful hunt and Kisuke dropping Daigo off at home. The volume then closes with Mashiro in a field and Yuki searching for her on her birthday. When Daigo arrives, he immediately notices that Yuki and Mashiro's shoes are missing. As he steps into the kitchen, he sees a birthday cake prepared for Mashiro and quickly calls Yuki to apologize. But before he can say anything, Yuki tells him that Mashiro has gone missing. Daigo quickly realizes that the hunting trip was just a distraction, a setup for someone to kidnap Mashiro. We then cut to the Goto family casually discussing Kisuke's hunt. It's revealed that Kisuke, who will soon be the head of the Goto family, is responsible for handling all of the dirty work. Yuki returns home in tears, with villagers rallying to search for Mashiro. When Daigo confronts them, asking if they knew anything, Sabu defensively blames Daigo for Mashiro's disappearance, accusing him of negligence for going on the hunting trip. Daigo immediately grows suspicious. How did they know he was hunting? The villagers claim that they saw him, but Daigo knows that it's impossible to tell. Furious, Daigo warns them that if he finds out that they're involved in Mashiro's disappearance, he won't hesitate to kill them. As the tensions escalate, Yuki receives a call. They found Mashiro. The villagers, unnerved by Daigo's behavior, comment on how he's starting to resemble Mr. Kano. On the way home, Yuki and Daigo argue about his erratic behavior. She worries that his obsession with investigating the Gotos is tearing their family apart. Meanwhile, the Goto family holds a meeting with one of the villagers. They note how quiet things have been lately and expresses excitement for the upcoming festival, now just 3 days away. Daigo tries to act like everything is normal for his family, but the weight of his investigation looms large. He wonders if any Goto family members have doubts about the festival and its dark traditions. We then cut to Yusuke and Iwayo, hooded up and feeding children locked in cells. Iwayo explains that the old man plans to eat one of the children and that it's now Yusuke's responsibility to uphold the tradition. As Yosuke washes the child who's to be sacrificed, he breaks down in tears, struggling with the reality that this is a human being. Despite having grown up in the Goto tradition, Yusuke finds himself questioning what he's been taught. As festival preparations conclude, Munechika approaches Daigo, mentioning that he knows about the hunting trip with Kisuke. He then reveals that he's known Kisuke since elementary school, and that Kisuke's younger brother Yusuke is known to be very honest and kind. The festival practice begins, with villagers burning a human-sized wooden mannequin covered in flowers, dancing and drumming around it. Munechika reminds Daigo that the festival originally involved human sacrifices to the gods, a curse passed down through generations. He then asks Daigo how this all appears from an outsider's perspective. The next day, Kisuke is officially appointed head of the Goto family, vowing to run the festival as smoothly as his grandmother once did. Daigo has the day off, so the family decides to celebrate Mashiro's birthday. After dinner, Yuki is happier than she's been in a long time, but Daigo secretly plans for them to leave the village. Sensing danger, Iwayo orders men to keep an eye on Daigo and Yusuke, worried that they might try to betray the family, like Yusuke's mother did. Daigo discovers a tracking device on his car planted by the villagers. He decides to take his family for a drive, with a Goto family member watching from a distance. As they drive, Daigo grows suspicious that they're being followed. He tries to lose their tail, eventually swerving wildly until their pursuer crashes into a railing. The Goto member calls Iwayo, reporting that he's lost them. Daigo then meets up with his old partner, Yamabushi. Yuki begs Daigo to stay with them, but Daigo insists that he must return to the village to save the child in danger. He promises Yuki that he'll come back to them, and then heads back to the village. We flash forward to the future, where Daigo is lying on the ground and Kisuke offers him a piece of meat as the old man devours a human. 40 hours earlier, Kisuke is holding a meeting about Daigo's disappearance, certain that Daigo will return, but unconcerned since the festival will continue as planned. Kisuke recalls how the old man once cut his forehead, mirroring Daigo's injury, and wonders where Daigo is now. Daigo is in the woods, staring down the Goto family home when Iwayo appears behind them. They engage in a struggle, but Iwayo is too strong. Daigo demands to know about the children for the festival, but he asks how he knows about that, confirming his suspicion that there's a traitor within the Goto family. Iwayo acknowledges that Daigo has the day off and suggests he takes his time before the festival at the Goto home. Daigo is then guided to the Goto family home, where Kisuke is waiting. They share a drink just as they did when they first met. Meanwhile, Iwayo searches a tunnel, suspecting that Yusuke may have betrayed the family. Kisuke suggests that they drink until the festival begins, but Daigo insists that the children be released first. He proposes blaming everything on Jin Goto, which will result in light sentences for the others that were involved, to make it look fair. One of the Goto members, angered by this, pulls a gun out on Daigo, but Daigo quickly disarms him and holds him hostage. Daigo warns that if he dies, a real investigation will begin. Another Goto member yells at Daigo, but Kisuke silences him by smashing a bottle over his head, ordering everyone to put their guns down. Kisuke believes that Daigo is losing his mind, just like Mr. Kano did. Even the village chief agrees, urging Daigo to stand down and abandon the investigation. The volume ends with Yusuke and the child getting ready to leave for the festival. We flash back to a young Kisuke and Yusuke sitting with Jin Goto as she reveals a painful truth. Their mother was a traitor. Jin sternly tells them to forget about her entirely. She singles out Yusuke though, saying that out of all of the family members, she cares for him the most. Jin urges Yusuke to move on from his mother and focus on loving her instead, so he can become a proud member of the Goto family. Back in the present, Daigo is in a car with the chief, heading to headquarters. Daigo had insisted on this private conversation, sensing that the chief had something important to share. Upon arrival, they meet with 5 other detectives, all focused on investigating the Goto family. The chief, burdened with guilt over Kano's death, is determined to make things right. The detectives discuss how Kano was eaten and how a Goto family member took the blame for it. Daigo then chimes in, mentioning an old man within the Goto family who might hold the key to their secrets. One detective presents a Goto family tree, noting that Jin Goto was always obsessed with bloodlines. The elder male figure, Kisuke's father, wasn't related to them by blood, so the mantle of head of the family passed down to Kisuke, the eldest son. As for Jin's daughter, Ai Goto, she mysteriously disappeared 18 years ago. Daigo speculates that the person that saved the mysterious man might be Ai. Meanwhile, Yusuke thinks about escaping the prison with the child, but Iwayo suddenly appears, suspicious that Yusuke might be the traitor. Iwayo strikes him down and orders 2 guards to watch over him and the child. As he leaves the cave, it's revealed that Yutada was sent to keep an eye on him, suspecting he might know something about where the children are hidden. Daigo's gamble paid off, and now they know the exact location of the kids. However, they still need solid evidence to justify sending in an armed special force, so they decide to split into 3 units. One to continue investigating the Goto family, another to search for Ai Goto, and the last to gather more information about the children. Before heading out, the chief visits his grandfather, while Daigo meets up with Dr. Nakamura. Daigo apologizes to Nakamura for dragging him into this, but Nakamura only asks who he can trust in the investigation. He also reveals a past connection with Kano. The chief questions his grandfather about the Goto family, who advises him to stay away from them. He shares a rumor about a powerful landowner with an illness who is known to smile constantly, an illness that is gained by eating other humans. When Daigo asks Nakamura if he's a collaborator for Kano, he denies it, saying he was just monitoring the disease. 6 months ago, Nakamura was checking on both Kano and Jin Goto. Jin's condition wasn't severe, but her mobility was impaired, and she would often smile eerily. Eventually, she would become wild and start attacking people. Nakamura suggested that Jin's condition resembles Kuru disease, a rare disease caused by cannibalism. Kano initially had a good relationship with both the villagers and the Gotos, but everything changed when he met Jin Goto. Kano brought Jin back to her family, advising them to take her to the hospital as it seems that she'd be suffering from a new illness, despite the Gotos insisting that she had dementia. The Gotos' defensive reaction sparked Kano to investigate deeper. Daigo begins to question everything, including whether Jin was really killed by a bear or if she was really eaten. The chief's conversation with his grandfather ends with the cryptic remark that that person is currently at the Goto home and that during the war, this person went straight into hiding. Nakamura warns Daigo that Kuru disease is fatal and incurable, often referred to as the madness disease. Daigo then receives a call from the mysterious man, who asks if he's alright. Daigo encourages him to come out of hiding and help with the investigation, ensuring him that he'll be safe and that he's working with the police. Daigo then asks if his mother has said anything before she died. The truth is that she didn't, because she's still alive, and her real name is Ai Goto. The man promises to bring her to Daigo if he can guarantee her safety. After the call ends, the man confronts Ai, who refuses to discuss the past and hides the truth from him, only trying to protect him. Daigo informs the chief that the man will bring in Ai, but acknowledges it's still not enough evidence to deploy the special forces. They consider canceling the operation, but Daigo is reluctant. He's going to save the kids, even if he has to do it alone. As the villagers prepare for a feast, Muneshika meets with Kisuke, urging him to cancel the festival. He insists that they now have the power to stop it and free the children. Kisuke, however, pretends like he doesn't know anything and dismisses his concerns. When Muneshika pulls out a shotgun to force the issue, Kisuke quickly knocks him down. Daigo, determined, heads back to the village alone. Meanwhile, Kisuke and the rest of the Goto family gather up with Yusuke and the child. The volume ends with Daigo making his way to the prison and a final scene of Sumire clutching her stomach, calling out for Kisuke. Gannibal has always managed to keep me at the edge of my seat, but in hindsight, these 3 volumes were nothing more than exposition. Now, that doesn't mean the story was boring, that's not the case at all. The whole point of these 3 volumes is to build up to the festival, and it does an amazing job at making me excited for what seems like a endgame level event. There are twists and turns all over the series, and it just keeps on getting crazier and crazier with every volume. We get cameos from old characters, new interesting characters, and now an all-out war with the villagers and the Gotos versus Daigo. Literally a one versus the world scenario. My favorite part about these volumes is that we're seeing a mental war going on between the 3. The villagers and the Gotos are trying to convince Daigo that he's insane, trying to push him to the breaking point like how they did with Kano. Little things like kidnapping Mashiro and making it seem like an accident, or spreading rumors of them throughout the village. Things like that just to mess with his psyche are just so interesting, and it even begins to affect his family life, torn between whether he should keep going with the investigation or just quit and live happily with his family. The characters are always improving, even random cameo appearances play huge roles when covering the entire story. The Goto family are also dealing with some serious issues. Kisuke and Yusuke are kind of torn between the traditions, but Kisuke being the older one and the new head of the table, he has a duty to complete these tasks. Plus, to him the village would never change because the villagers are all just freaking psychos. Then you have Yusuke, who's torn with the traditions but is very much against it. And now he's seen as a traitor even though he hasn't really done anything yet. But like I said, these volumes are meant to hype up the festival event. I can understand 1 or 2 volumes doing this, but for 3 volumes of just lore dumping and repeated information that we already knew is kinda insane. And a little nitpick for volume 3 and 4, they really don't know how to end these volumes. They're pretty lackluster in my opinion, and the only good cliffhanger is from the 5th volume, where it's revealed that Kisuke may have impregnated Sumire, which would add more family tension to the Goto family feud. But overall, I really did enjoy these last couple of volumes. They build tension, they add on to the mystery and the world building, the characters are all still really interesting to watch, and now with the festival coming up, I'm expecting an all-out war. The best way to really describe this is that these 3 volumes are literally the first Dune movie, where we get all of the information dumped out of the way for Dune 2 to give us all of the fan service drama and action later on. It's clear that the real horror is just beginning, and I can't wait to see how twisted this tale unfolds. But thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want a part 3, then let's reach that 2K like goal, and I promise to have it out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But if you guys like more horror, anime, and manga videos like this one, then why not hit that subscribe button? May God bless you guys, and I really hope to see you guys in the next one.